like when Bitcoin was first introduced, was there always, I guess, like a monetary conversion? Because if like, if you were buying things, was that price always monitored, like from the get-go?
I think it was, yeah.
How were you like finding, was that just available online? Like,
I'm pretty sure at the beginning of the system there was a monetary value associated with it, because that's the way you still have to convert whatever currency you have into cryptocurrency, so there has to be some sort of conversion rate.
So is that, and we're kind of going all over the place.
Yeah.
Is that kind of why did enterprises not trust? Because like crypto is a lot of like personal and consumer transactions. And maybe there were like, were there some security concerns? Is that why companies like IBM, Google were like, let's build our own version of this that enterprises can trust? Is that sort of, was that the intro and getting involved in it?
Yeah, I think so. So exactly what you said. Bitcoin wasn't really made for it's not made for companies to use. It's not made for the enterprise, or it's made for a very specific thing, which is anonymously sending money over the internet. So especially for financial institutions or for anything in healthcare,
because you don't want it to be, and it also shouldn't be anonymous at that point, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You should so for big companies, they always want to know who they're doing business with and who they're transacting with, especially for financial institutions. They need to know your customer, and also anti-money laundering laws. They need to be able to track exactly who's transacting with who on the network. So because of that reason, banks couldn't really use Bitcoin, or they couldn't use a cryptocurrency, because the whole point of the cryptocurrency is that it's anonymous. That's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it decentralized. That's what makes it kind of unique. So that's a huge reason why, is that anonymity factor. So once we start kind of getting into more Hyperledger Fabric, we'll talk about that. But that's the key one, like maybe the key difference is that people are known on the network. It's not anonymous anymore.
Yeah.
So Hyperledger Fabric is taking a lot of those key features from Bitcoin and Ethereum, but modifying some of those to make it more suitable for the enterprise and make it more likely to solve problems for big corporations.
Okay. So what is Hyperledger Fabric?
So Hyperledger Fabric is a distributed ledger technology and platform, and it's
Did IBM develop it?
So IBM started the development of Hyperledger Fabric, and it donated the code to the Linux Foundation.
Could you explain kind of what is it Linux 1?
Linux Foundation.
Linux 1 is the computer.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you explain what the Linux Foundation is?
Sure.
For people that don't know.
Yeah. So the Linux Foundation is a big open source. It's a collaboration between a lot of different companies, and a lot of the biggest open source projects, such as Linux, the operating system itself, a lot of the programming languages like Node.js, that's based on JavaScript, Kubernetes, which is a big open source project right now that was started by Google. A lot of these really big open source technologies were founded and grown by the Linux Foundation, and it's essentially this corporation. It's a nonprofit that fosters and creates guidelines and rules of how do you develop open source projects, and creates a healthy and like collaborative environment for different companies to be all working towards the same goal of creating good open source software.
Is the software all on Linux Foundation?
So it's hosted by them, but I mean most of the software itself is either on GitHub or other code repository sites. So I can look at it, you can look at it, anyone can look at it. Whereas proprietary software, which there's a lot of that,
Was this like an absolute game changer prior to Linux Foundation? Was it all proprietary?
Before open source started, then it was all proprietary.
So has that, like, would you attribute open to like this meteoric rise of like innovation and technology just because now people get to collaborate? Is that?
I would say definitely.
Is it like tangible, the difference?
I would say so, yeah. So I mean, the more eyes that are looking at the software, the better it is, right? Because
it's crazy because it's like, it's companies are so competitive and cutthroat and looking for advantages, but yet you still have to play in this environment where like everything is open.
Exactly.
So like it's strange.
Yeah. So another thing about the open source model, which is really interesting, I'm still learning and trying to figure it out. Yeah. But a lot of companies will make these huge projects like Kubernetes, like Hyperledger Fabric,
like quantum computing, IBM's
Qiskit,
IBM's making that
open source,
Right.
So a lot of these companies will make something open source, and they'll do that, one, to get more eyes on it and to create better software, but two, to also kind of give back to the community.
Got it.
And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take that base open source project and they'll add features to it. And this is kind of what IBM is doing. This is what Red Hat is doing with Kubernetes. This is what Google is doing as well. But they'll take that base project and they'll add specific features, proprietary features, monitoring, things that they think their specific clients need, or whatever their clients said that they need, and they'll add specific features to it and they'll make it a product. It's still based on the open source software, and they still have that. It's essentially still the open source software project itself, but they're adding a few extra functionalities on top of it so that they can still monetize it, because otherwise you can't monetize open source because it's free. Like anyone can look at it, anyone can use it. So at this point, really the only way to monetize it would be to like provide support, which is kind of what Red Hat is doing, or to augment and make that base layer better, which is what a lot of companies are doing.
So what is Hyperledger Fabric, and then maybe what is the difference with the version maybe that IBM's monetizing?
So IBM started and donated this code to the Linux Foundation. That was Hyperledger Fabric. After we donated that project, we have about 250 companies now contributing to Hyperledger Fabric. So we have more innovation, more companies looking at it, and now it's all open source, but IBM does have its own proprietary product based on Hyperledger Fabric, which is called the Ibm Blockchain Platform. That's where a lot of people get confused. People are like, oh, is Hyperledger Fabric IBM's? And it's not. It's an open source project. IBM started it and they donated it, but it's not an IBM product. Whereas whereas IBM Blockchain Platform is an IBM product, and it adds certain features like monitoring, ways to grow your network faster. It adds those features on top of Hyperledger Fabric.
So what makes IBM Hyperledger Fabric designed for enterprise versus, I guess, some of these other?
So the biggest thing, so the biggest thing that makes it designed for the enterprise, I think, is kind of the anonymity thing is taken out. So we covered that a little bit. I think the second biggest thing, so outside of So the big two classes of blockchain, and there's a lot of debate on this, you guys can debate in the comments below, highly encourage that, is public versus private blockchain. So the public blockchain is like Bitcoin. What public means is that anyone can see the list of transactions. So I can go ahead and go to a block explorer online and look at every single transaction that's ever happened in Bitcoin. But as with Hyperledger Fabric, you can't do that. So only the people that are invited to that network are able to actually see the transactions, and within that network, you can add special access control rules so that competitors cannot see certain transactions. So, for example, Bitcoin is made so that you don't need to trust anyone. It's completely anonymous, and the way that the network runs is that there's economics behind it that incentivize people to mine blocks on the network, and that essentially is creating the security, and it's creating this way that everyone can agree on the next transaction. But that's not possible in Hyperledger Fabric because we can't let anyone just join the network, and we can't let anyone just agree on the transactions. It has to be these specific business partners. So there's the thing about Hyperledger Fabric that people need to understand is that there's no really economic incentive to join the network other than streamlining your business, or other than collaborating with these people that you need to collaborate with.
I guess, can you